They fired Denise on a Tuesday. No warning, no meeting. Just an email saying her role had been consolidated. I watched her pack up her desk while the new plant director gave some peppy speech in the break room about redefining operational excellence. She had over 20 years of field compliance experience. Gone before lunch? My name's Susan. I'm 46. I work in Freeport, Texas, as a facilities compliance manager at a mid-sized chemical plant. Been here 12 years. I don't smile much, and I don't make small talk. I read safety logs and make sure nothing explodes. That used to mean something. Then this guy shows up, Bryant Lawson, just finished some executive MBA program and acted like it was the second coming of Einstein. No plant experience. Didn't even know what a containment vault was when he started. But he had slides, buzzwords, big plans. He starts bringing in people. Innovation specialists, process disruptors, all under 30, all grinning like they were launching an app, not running a high-risk chemical facility, tablets in hand, no steel-toe boots. One of them wore sandals into the waste inspection zone. I had to stop him before he walked into a restricted area barefoot. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going? And where are you joining from? Anyway, my department? Gutted. We used to have 9 inspectors and 2 full-time documentation analysts. After Bryant's efficiency realignment, we were down to 4 total. Lean ops, he called it. Said our workflows were too analog. I stayed quiet. I didn't argue. I watched. Safety reports turned into infographics with color-coded risk indicators. Real inspection reports disappeared. Half the checklists were now Google Forms with pre-filled answers. One guy skipped a secondary containment check and just clicked compliant on his iPad. He never even left the hallway. They stopped inviting me to the weekly compliance syncs. Then they revoked my access to the inspection scheduling tool. I found out through one of the younger techs that my name wasn't even on the new org chart. Just legacy compliance, observer role. I'm not stupid. I kept showing up, did my part, stayed out of the way. But I remembered where the old paper logs were stored, in the back corner filing cabinets in B2, behind the emergency equipment inventory. I didn't say anything, not yet. But I started keeping notes, because once they start skipping inspections and deleting access logs, it's never just one mistake. It's a culture. And cultures like that, they rot from the top down. So I waited, and I watched. The first red flag was a log entry from a Saturday. We don't operate on weekends, not for inspections. But there it was. Full checklist marked complete, signed off digitally by someone I'd never met. I double-checked the badge access logs. No one even entered the facility that day. Then I found 2 more like it. Different dates, same pattern, missing initials, timestamps that didn't match the plant's operating hours, equipment listed that hadn't been on site for weeks. I thought maybe it was a system error. So I pulled a recent disposal record, one for a shipment of industrial-grade solvent we'd offloaded last month. The form said it had been safely disposed by an external vendor, but there was no disposal manifest attached, no receipt, no chain of custody, just gone. So I took it to Brady. He's the new data efficiency coordinator. Looks like he's maybe 24. Wears those bone conduction headphones around his neck like he's permanently in a TED Talk. He's the same guy who once pitched AI-powered scaffolding solutions during a lunch and learn. No one even knew what that meant. I laid the printed solvent record on his desk. There's no manifest for this, and the logs don't match. You have a disposal, but no hauler. He glanced at the paper like I'd handed him a receipt from the gas station. Oh, we don't use those paper trails anymore? Everything's on the dashboard now. There's nothing on the dashboard either, I said. Just the final report. No supporting documents. He smiled like he was being patient with a toddler. You might be over-attached to analog systems. We're streamlining data entry across channels, not chasing loose PDFs. I didn't blink. Then you're not tracking disposal. You're just logging assumptions. He tapped his keyboard like he was about to show me something brilliant. All he pulled up was a colorful chart labeled Waste Flow, Q2, pie slices, bright colors, no names, no dates. See? It's summarized right here, he said. That's not evidence, that's decoration. He chuckled and turned back to his screen. We're evolving past the old mindset. No offense, but that's why people call you legacy compliance, not Susan, not manager. Just a label, something they could file away with the clipboards and carbon copies. I stopped pushing after that. But I didn't stop working. I started printing everything I could still access. Waste logs, inbound and outbound shipping reports, equipment maintenance checklists. I cross-checked badge swipes with inspection timestamps. Anything that didn't line up, I saved. I bought a separate file drawer for my cubicle. Started building my own archive. Hard copies only, originals if I could get them. Was I planning to blow the whistle? Number, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just knew how fast things fall apart when no one's watching. They kept painting the walls, rearranging furniture, buying ergonomic chairs. Every change came with another Slack channel and an alignment initiative. But I could smell the rot underneath. So I kept printing. Because numbers don't lie, but the people who enter them do. 2 days after I caught a duplicated inspection entry, we got the big invite. Transformation kickoff, all hands, fancy font, animated logo, RSVP link, mandatory attendance. They converted the old maintenance bay into an event space. Vinyl banners everywhere. One company, one future. A coffee bar with a barista who spelled my name Susan, like that mattered. Projectors lit up the walls. Some intern had stitched together a corporate hype reel. Glossy drone shots of the plant, stock footage of wind turbines, and a voiceover saying we were entering a new era of sustainable chemical innovation. Then Bryant Lawson stepped up like he was hosting an awards show. "I'm proud to announce our merger with Kinetic Materials," he said, grinning like he'd just cured cancer. "Together, we're becoming the future of chemical logistics. Carbon smart, digitally native, globally scalable." The applause was automatic. Some of the younger staff even whooped. I stood in the back with a paper cup of burnt coffee and didn't clap once. After the slideshow, they posted the new org chart on the screen. Big, interactive grid. Everyone's name in little color-coded bubbles. My department? Gone. My name? Not even listed. Not a footnote, not a dotted line report. But there was Dylan Madsen, the kid I trained 2 years ago, the one who once mislabeled a vat of acetone as flavored additive and nearly caused a lockout. Now he was standing up front in a new logo polo, being introduced as the head of environmental reporting integration. I caught his eye. He looked straight past me. I didn't say a word, didn't cause a scene. I just walked out after the last slide and went straight to my desk. While everyone else was eating branded cupcakes and taking selfies with the new company sign, I logged into the shared legal directory. Nobody had changed my credentials for that one yet. I pulled the merger agreement draft, scanned the language. Full regulatory compliance to date. 0 outstanding safety citations. Verified documentation of waste disposal procedures for the last 36 months. Every sentence hit like a slap. I knew what was missing. I knew what was fabricated. I didn't need to scroll far before I saw it. The sign-off line with Brian's digital signature. He'd certified everything as accurate. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling tiles, and let that sink in. They were selling a story that wasn't true, dressing up our sloppy data and skipped inspections like it was gold-plated compliance. Dylan, who couldn't tell the difference between ethanol and methanol without a label, was now the point man for environmental integrity. And me? I didn't exist anymore? I printed the compliance clauses from the merger doc and slid them into my personal binder. Section marked Legal Promises. Let them chase buzzwords. I had facts, and facts don't care about branding. After the merger party ended and the sugar high wore off, everything got weirdly quiet. I still showed up at 7 every morning. Did the little bits of compliance work they hadn't stripped from me yet. Equipment temp logs, inventory snapshots, basic form reviews, low-trust tasks, stuff they thought was harmless. But the cracks were getting louder. Inspection logs had the same digital signature 3 days in a row. Different locations, same timestamp. A weekly waste permit was uploaded twice with different container weights. One manifest had a disposal site listed that had been shut down for EPA violations a year ago. None of the new hires noticed. They were too busy building dashboards and color-coding compliance risk by emoji. Seriously, one report had a laughing face next to a low-severity leak incident. Metrics were God now. Actual inspections? Optional. If the chart looked good, the box was checked. If the line went up, no one asked what it was measuring. But I was watching. And then came the morning they weren't ready for. 4 of them walked in just past 8, suits, hard hats, clipboards, serious faces. No announcement, no warning. Auditors from Kinetic. I saw it from my cube, second row from the supply closet. They went straight into the main meeting room, closed the door, and taped a printed sign to the glass. Internal review in progress. Do not disturb. Brady, the data coordinator, popped his head up like a squirrel. "Did you know they were coming?" he whispered across the aisle. I took a sip of my coffee and didn't answer. He looked nervous. Good. Within 20 minutes, someone wheeled in 4 laptops and 2 boxes of printed reports. The IT guy from corporate started pulling logs off the cloud backup server. The room filled with the quiet sound of scanning. Paper flipping, highlighters clicking, keys tapping. The panic spread slow, like gas. By 10, Dylan had gone pale and stopped posting on the merger Slack channel. Someone from HR walked out of the room wiping her face like she'd just been chewed out. Bryant's door stayed shut, blinds down. I just kept working. No one called my name. No one asked me anything. I was a ghost just like they'd made me. So I sat still and kept watching, listening. The silence was louder than any alarm. No one joked. No one left for coffee. No one played music from their cubicle speaker. All those chirpy Slack channels went quiet. By noon, I had a fresh stack of audit tags on my desk. Not from them, from me. Printouts I'd pulled that morning. Duplicate records, unsigned inspections, ghost shipments. They weren't ready for this, but I'd been ready for months. By early afternoon, the lead auditor took the room. She looked like someone who didn't smile unless legally required. Mid-50s, hair pulled tight, jacket still buttoned, even in the heat. She stood like she'd been through worse places than this one, and she didn't flinch when Bryant tried to charm her with a welcome packet and an iPad. Her name was Renee. "I need raw data," she said. "Flat, clear. No summaries, no charts. Shipment logs, original intake reports, utility consumption by week for the last 12 months. Brady blinked. "We've got everything visualized on the compliance dashboard. It's all in one view." She cut him off. "I'm not here to see a view. I'm here to see the foundation. Send the exports to my team by end of hour." He opened his mouth again. She didn't even look at him. The energy shifted. Within an hour, the audit team found 3 different versions of the same quarterly emissions report. One in the shared drive, one on a thumb drive in Dylan's drawer, one pulled from the cloud backup, each with different totals. I watched from my desk as the interns whispered and slacked each other links to reports they hoped no one would open. Brady ran back and forth between his cube and the meeting room like his sneakers were on fire. Then came the questions. "Where's the waste manifest archive from 2023? Who signed off on this container inventory? Why is this tank still listed if it was decommissioned last fall?" Every answer was slower than the last. People started digging through old folders like they were looking for buried gold. And then, like clockwork, my inbox lit up. Subject: quick question. "Hey, do you remember how we tracked hazardous waste manifests in 2022? Asking for background. Thanks." 2 minutes later, subject: need input. "Hey Susan, just wondering if you recall how we used to log outbound shipments before the new platform. Can't find the template." Then another. Subject: friendly ping. "Was hoping you might remember who managed disposal chain of custody before we migrated. Appreciate it." I didn't respond to a single one. I filed them all into a folder labeled Suddenly Curious. Subfolder: ignored me for months. Around 4:30, one of the junior auditors walked past my cube holding 2 binders and shaking her head. She muttered something like, "These numbers don't even round right," and disappeared into the war room again. By 5, the team had flagged at least 6 missing disposal records and flagged an entire month of emissions data as inconsistent. Some of the container logs had serial numbers for drums we didn't even have. I knew that because I'd done the last full inventory before Bryant rewrote the compliance map and pushed me off it. The panic was no longer subtle. Bryant's door opened and shut 3 times in 15 minutes. He stopped using his fake casual voice and started whispering. Brady sat frozen at his desk, hands over his mouth, scrolling through old files like prayer would bring the right one back. I sipped my coffee, still hot from my last break, and didn't move. They were finally seeing it. Not just the errors, not just the gaps, the rot. And I didn't have to raise a hand or call a meeting. I just had to wait. They buried the truth under dashboards and buzzwords. But numbers don't bury easy. They always come back up. By the next morning, you could hear the tension before anyone said a word. People moved quieter, faster. Whispers carried through the hallways like rumors on a bad radio frequency. Someone said they saw Bryant arguing with Legal out by the north parking lot. Voices raised, hands flying. Legal walked off. Bryant stood there staring at the hood of his car like it had personally betrayed him. Then came the request that really shook the walls. The audit team asked for keycard access logs. Not reports, raw data, timestamps. Who entered what building? When? how long they stayed, what doors opened, which ones didn't. That's when things started to fall apart. Some inspection logs were supposedly completed before the building had even been opened that day. One waste transport sign-off was time-stamped on a Sunday. No access activity at all. A safety walkthrough marked completed and verified was logged at 6:42 a.m. by someone who hadn't badged in until 8:15. The excuses started flying. Oh, maybe it was a delayed sync. System time might have been off that day. That must have been an old template someone reused. Suddenly, legacy compliance was back in their mouths, but not with respect. They tossed it around like it was a disease. She's legacy compliance. She doesn't understand the systems. This process was from legacy compliance, probably outdated. Some of these forms were built during the legacy compliance period. That's why it's inconsistent. I sat at my desk and let it all roll off. Let them blame the walls, the weather, the time zones. I just kept listening, watching. Then came the soft knock on my cube. I didn't even look up. "Susan?" the voice said. It was Dylan. I turned. He was fidgeting with his badge like it might disappear mid-sentence. "Hey, no hard feelings, okay? They're just looking for a more tech-forward vibe. It's not personal." I blinked. "You're the one in charge of merger readiness now, aren't you?" His mouth opened, then shut, like he hadn't expected that. "You signed off on the reporting strategy," I added. "You mapped the digital transition. You gave them the numbers." He nodded once, then gave me a weak smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's a team effort, right?" "Sure," I said, and turned back to my monitor. He stood there another second before mumbling, "All right, just wanted to say that." Then walked off. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, pulled out a clean binder, and started filling it. Not with old printouts this time, with audit notes, copies of the flagged records, screenshots of conflicting logs, time mismatch reports. Every little crack that widened in the last 24 hours. Label, active damage control, because the vibe may have been tech forward, but the facts were rolling in old school, and hard. They wanted me invisible, but I'd already left fingerprints on everything that mattered. 10 minutes after Dylan walked off, the invite hit my inbox. Subject, quick sync, Susan time, 3 p.m. location, Conference A, formerly the War Room. No other details, just my name in the title like I was a calendar item. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my binder, poured the last of the burnt coffee into a paper cup, and walked down the hall. Doors were cracked open as I passed. Eyes followed. When I stepped into Conference A, the room went still. Bryant was there, standing, arms crossed, jaw tight. Legal sat next to him, flipping through a thick stack of printed reports like they were waiting for one to catch fire. Renee sat at the head of the table, expression unreadable. Next to her were the same 3 auditors from earlier, now all with laptops open and lined with sticky notes. Then the integration team, Dylan, Brady, a couple of the newer hires, all fidgeting, staring anywhere but at me. No one offered me a chair. Renee nodded at the seat across from her. "Susan, sit. We need raw insight." No introductions, no small talk. She slid a flash drive across the table and pointed to the laptop in front of me. I plugged it in, no questions. Just started scrolling. First folder, waste chain logs. I clicked open a manifest report, found 2 identical copies with different vendor IDs and disposal locations. One listed a hauler out of Lubbock that hasn't held an active license since 2021. Next folder, container storage inventory. Half the tanks were marked full on the same date they were supposedly emptied. Serial numbers showed up on 2 separate inventory sheets, weeks apart, different volumes. I kept clicking. Each file opened another hole in the story. Renee leaned forward. "Thoughts?" I didn't look up. "You've got ghost shipments, redundant permits, disposal logs that never happened. Some of these were copied and renamed without updating the timestamps. Whoever was covering tracks didn't understand version control." Brady cleared his throat. We assumed the platform merged those automatically." I kept scrolling. Pulled up an export labeled Q1 compliance if final. Same data as the Q1 compliance. Draft, -2 whole rows, both labeled hazardous solvent. "Who removed these?" I asked. No one answered. Bryant finally spoke. "This isn't about pointing fingers. We're just trying to get ahead of—" I cut him off. "You're not ahead of anything? This is a scramble. You signed a deal claiming 0 violations and full documentation. This drive alone blows that claim sideways." I stopped typing. looked at the table. Question is, you want it fixed or you want it exposed? Silence. Legal shifted in her seat. Dylan swallowed hard. Renee didn't flinch. She finally said, "We need both." Fast, I nodded. Then I need full access to historical logs, internal communications from the transition phase, and someone who still has edit rights to the original compliance scheduler. Brady muttered, That might take time to sort." "You're out of time," I said. I pushed the laptop slightly forward. "I can map the breakdown. I can reconstruct the original trail. But you better figure out who's owning what, because this is already bigger than paperwork." Nobody moved. Not even Bryant. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just waited. They'd built their future on a lie. Now they were asking the past for directions. Nobody breathed for a full minute after I finished talking. Then one of the auditors, the quiet guy with the thinning hair and a faded UT ring, reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded napkin from the coffee station, and started writing, not on a laptop, not in a spreadsheet, a napkin. He scribbled numbers while muttering to himself, shipping volumes, untracked solvent weight, misstated manifests, repeated permits, stacking liability on top of liability. He circled the final number, slid it across the table to Brian like it was the check after a bad meal. No one said a word. 7 figures. And that was before anyone mentioned state fines, EPA enforcement, or civil exposure. Bryant didn't touch the napkin. He just stared at it like it might bite. Renee looked at me. "What's the pattern you're seeing?" I flipped open my binder and pointed to a tabbed section labeled Threshold Games. They kept violations just under reporting limits, over and over, same chemical, same container size, just enough to avoid triggering an incident report. You wouldn't notice unless you pulled month-to-month comparisons and factored in density. I moved to the next page. They use shell disposal vendors, names that check out until you search their license numbers, no active permits. One of them had a P.O. box and no physical address. I pulled another sheet. Inspection dates were faked using old templates. Look at the font. It's the old header style we retired in 2021. And the same digital signature shows up on logs from 2 different buildings on the same day. Dylan finally spoke. "That could have just been a clerical—" "No, it couldn't," I snapped. "You didn't forget. You replaced. You turned compliance into a checklist without context." Bryant pushed his chair back. "I didn't know they were still active. We were under the impression all old workflows were decommissioned." I looked him straight in the eye. "Then why'd you revoke my system access and leave me off the org chart?" He didn't answer. Renee closed her binder. "We're halting our portion of the audit, effective immediately." Bryant sat up straighter. "Wait, what does that mean?" "It means we've moved past internal reconciliation. We're recommending a forensic investigation." That landed like a slap. Brady dropped his pen. Dylan stared at the floor. Legal leaned in toward Bryant and started whispering, fast and low. I caught pieces. "MGO, criminal exposure? Autet external disclosure obligations? Badio, whistleblower protections?" I didn't need to hear more. I zipped my binder closed, dropped it in my bag, and stood up. No dramatic pause, no speech, just movement. I wasn't going to be their shield. Not when they'd spent months trying to erase me. Renee gave me a look as I reached the door. Not warm, not cold, just acknowledging. I walked out with everything I needed. They had their napkin math. I had the receipts. I made it halfway to the parking lot before I heard heels behind me, fast and purposeful. I didn't turn around. "Susan," she called. "Just 1 minute, please." I stopped beside the concrete loading dock. The sun was brutal and my coffee was long gone. Company legal, Karen something, jogged up, ponytail bobbing, holding a manila envelope like it was on fire. She caught her breath. "You were listed in the continuity clause." I raised an eyebrow. "The one nobody thought to mention until now?" She nodded, eyes tight. "Correct. It came up about 15 minutes ago. You're the only one with direct knowledge of the legacy compliance systems and record trails. Kinetic's audit team is requesting technical interpretation of archived data. They want context. We need you to provide it." I said nothing. She stepped closer. 12-month consulting agreement. Triple your current salary. No org chart placement. No team assignment. You report directly to Kinetic's general audit lead. Full autonomy. "And no reporting to Bryant," I said. "Explicitly stated." She handed me the envelope. I opened it right there, flipped through the pages. They weren't bluffing. The contract was tight, structured, and ready for signature. My name, full name, was printed at the top. No label, no legacy, just Susan Maddox. I need a room, I said. She walked me back through the side entrance. No one in the halls made eye contact. We passed Dylan pacing near the vending machines, phone to his ear, face pale. He didn't look up. She led me to Conference B, small, quiet, no glass walls. I sat down, pulled a pen from my bag, and signed each page. When I finished, I stood and walked to the hallway window, the one overlooking the aquarium room. I didn't need to hear them to know what was happening in there. Bryant was still holding the napkin, still staring at it like maybe the numbers would change if he just looked hard enough. Legal was on the phone. Renee had her arms crossed, talking low to one of the forensic analysts. Brady was gone. I watched for one more second. Then I turned, grabbed the contract, and left. Not through the main entrance. I took the back hall, the same one they stopped giving me badge access to months ago. Now it was open again. I didn't slam the door, didn't toss one last line over my shoulder. I walked out quiet, but I wasn't walking out empty. I had leverage, knowledge, time, a paycheck that finally matched what I carried in my head. They tried to write me out of the story. Instead, they made me the footnote that rewrote the whole book. I wasn't walking out in revenge. I was walking out with value. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the rumors were already flying. The merger paused. Kinetic's general counsel, en route, arriving by noon. HR quietly rewriting severance packets and pulling termination templates from the archive. Someone posted a screenshot from Slack. Bryant's calendar was locked down, and his out of office had gone up without explanation. I didn't say a word. I just walked back into the building with a visitor badge clipped to my belt, bold orange strip across the bottom, labeled Consultant Authorized Access. It opened more doors than my employee ID ever did. The front desk girl stood up when she saw me. "Morning, Ms. Maddox." That was new. I passed Dylan in the hallway. He glanced up, froze, then looked down like I'd caught him stealing snacks from the break room. Bryant saw me from the aquarium room and turned his back like I wasn't there. The interns whispered my name now, not like gossip, like warning. I headed straight to the audit war room, where Renee and the forensic team had set up full-time. A new badge printer hummed in the corner, laptops stacked on tables, paper evidence files in labeled bins. Renee waved me over without looking up. "You're now listed as Senior Compliance Consultant, Transitional Operations. Welcome back." "Visitor badge still works," I said. "Good. We'll need you in Room C after this. They're trying to rebuild 2022's Q3 emissions map. It's a mess." I sat, pulled my notes, and opened a fresh spreadsheet. Started walking the new team through how the original compliance scheduler worked. Before the platform migration, before the fake dashboards, before the innovation, they took notes. They listened. One of them, younger guy, sharp eyes, no ego, leaned over and asked, "How'd you know to keep everything?" I didn't even look up, because someone had to. We worked all morning. The more we opened, the worse it looked. Fabricated volumes, deleted forms, whole months of recycled templates pretending to be fresh reports. I watched the company unravel, line by line, lie by lie. And the whole time, I sat there with the files, the backups, the real data. Because what they never understood and what none of them ever asked was that truth has a paper trail. You can delete dashboards, you can revoke badge access, but you can't erase a binder full of receipts. They thought I was obsolete. They were wrong. I'd been backing up the truth for years.